is Taylor Fouser, or as most lawyers like to refer to me as Trudy's son. I'm here today with the distinct honor of interviewing Trudy Fouser for the Most Distinguished Lawyer Award. Well, Trudy, let me start by saying what an honor this is. I've been following your career for a long time.
Well, thank you, Taylor. I would have to say that you've probably heard more opening statements and closing arguments and taken more verdicts before you were 12 years old than some lawyers have ever had the experience of doing. So, yes, you have been watching my career for a very long time.
And I'm the youngest of three children and the only one to make the decision to become a lawyer. And you know, we like to joke with other attorneys that by the time I came along, you forgot to warn me not to get into this profession. And so my question is this: do you believe it? And I would remind you, Trudy, that you're under oath here today.
Well, Taylor, I would remind you I'm not under oath.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, some days I feel very sorry for you that you're beginning your career. And there are a lot of challenges in being a lawyer, and especially, I think, in the subspecialty of litigation. I think every group probably feels this way. Probably wills, estate, trust lawyers feel the same way. Transactional lawyers feel the same way. But for me, I think litigation is, it is a tough profession because you're trying your best, but there's always someone on the other side trying to find the flaw in your argument or something you missed or a weakness you might have constantly. And so it is difficult at times. And there are many times where I remember being at the dinner table, especially when you three were teenagers, and saying, you know, that's it, I'm quitting, I'm staying home. And one of you would inevitably look over at Jack and go, she's just kidding, right? She's not going to stay at home. And I never did. And because it's usually really interesting work. And it is oftentimes very satisfying. And every once in a while, it is incredible. So I'm glad you've joined the ranks.
How about sharing, you know, one of those moments where, you know, you felt that satisfaction at the end of the day?
Well, I think every time, either with a judge or a jury, you're able to get your client's point and position across well enough that they agree with you is incredibly satisfying.
When you win?
When you win is very satisfying. I do remember one medical malpractice case representing a family practice physician who I thought the world of, who I thought was so incredibly passionate about his work and genuine and sincere, but a little shy. And his deposition went very poorly. But we found ourselves in trial, and we worked and talked about it. And I wanted more than anything for the jury to see what I saw in him. And after direct and then after cross, I knew they had. And for some reason, that's just stuck with me through all those almost countless trials now.
Yeah, you've had so much trial experience. You belong to the American College of Trial Lawyers. You are an advocate member for the American Board of Trial Advocates. Now, how many trials do you have to get in order to become an advocate?
You know, I could be wrong on this, but I think to become an advocate, you have to have 50 completed trials.
Which in this day and age is up there.
You have to do this a long time. And don't ask how long, please.
Well, I mean, you must have one entertaining story from all of these trials that you can share with us.
The plaintiff had been charged with arson but acquitted. And his insurance company had denied liability for his house burning down, and they claimed that he probably burned it down himself. After he was acquitted by a jury, he sued the insurance company for bad faith, for denying the payment. And I found myself in trial on that. And I remember that he lived, I think it was in Idaho City, And what they found was the day before the fire, he had opened for the first time in his life a safety deposit box. And he had in it all of the negatives from the pictures he had taken from years and years. He had his birth certificate, he had his passport, all safely put into the safety deposit box. And then he had called a friend in Idaho Falls and said he wanted to come over for the weekend. Well, the wife didn't like him particularly, but she went to, he pulled in the driveway, she went outside to greet him, and she turned around to her husband, because she looked at his car, and she said it looked like he had everything he owned. And I said to my husband, you said he was coming for a weekend. And she said he even brought in framed pictures to put in the room where he was staying. About a week before, he had also unfortunately fallen behind in his house payments, but was able to pay and get caught up on his insurance premiums. So
Please tell me you got a defense.
they were actually out a long time.
Can't be too careful.
But yes, we did get a defense verdict. And so, and one of the jurors who was excused had been doing her own research on him. And when the judge went to check the research to see whether or not the juror should be removed, she found he had an outstanding warrant. So the poor guy not only ended up losing the trial, there was a deputy in the back of the room that handcuffed him and took him away.
What about your kind of activities outside of the courtroom? You also give back to the bar. How do you feel that has helped you in your career?
Well, it's helped me far more than it's helped any giving back that I might have done. I was lucky enough to become one of the first members of the Idaho chapter of the Federal Bar Association, and then later became their president and a Ninth Circuit lawyer representative, which was absolutely fascinating, especially being able to get a trip to Southern California and or Hawaii for their conferences was just a great experience. And then on the state side, I became a bar commissioner, and I found that 3-year stint was probably the most enjoyable position I've ever been in. And to learn as much as I did about how this organization runs, how well it operates, you cannot say enough about our executive director, Diane Minnick. I mean, it's just amazing. So I really learned a lot and enjoyed that tremendously.
And, we could talk about all the traits that make you distinguish. I think of, your experience, your commitment to the bar, your preparedness, professionalism. But from my perspective, when I think of what makes you distinguished, one of the things that stands out to me, and I might be a little biased here, but is how you were able to build this successful career and yet still be a mother and raise 3 children. And, asking for a friend on this one, I guess, the question is, how do you do it?
In a way, that's a hard question because so much of it is a blur now. But going back, I mean, we struggled even in my day. And I think what helped me the most was balance doesn't mean perfect. And some weeks you'll be home with sick kids. I remember when the 3 of you all had the chicken pox one summer at different times. Or you're in trial. And one time I came home and Jack said, the kids want you to go up and kiss them goodnight. And I said, what kids? But overall it does seem to balance out. And if you kind of set some boundaries and rules, and one of mine was, I'm going to be home to cook dinner. Now, unfortunately, we ate the same thing about every other night for 20 years, but I was home for dinner. And one of the nicest compliments I thought you ever gave me was when you were telling me about one of your little friends whose mother was a real estate agent. And you said, she is such a hard worker. She works at night. She works on Saturdays. She sometimes works on Sundays. And we were at the dinner table, and I looked at Jack, and then I looked at you, and I said, well, so she's a hard worker? And you said, oh, she's such a hard worker. And I said, well, what kind of worker do you think I am? and you kind of looked around and you were 7 or 8 and gave it some thought and you said, "You're a medium worker." Which I took as a great compliment because you obviously thought I was around quite a bit.
Yeah, that's good. I'm going to have to remember that one for your annual review. Well, that's all the questions I have, Trudy, and congratulations again. I'm so very proud of you. I cannot think of anybody more deserving.
Thank you, Taylor.